Hi, everyone, and welcome to another comics loving edition of Words, Images, and Worlds. So glad on this episode, delighted to be talking with comics creator. I think we can say publisher. You have a comics company that we should talk about, and that is Mr. Danny J. Quick. May I call you Danny? Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely, Doc. I appreciate it.
Oh, well, thank you, thank you. You might be the first person on here that's called me Doc.
No, we're talking before about my love and respect for educators. So, put that PhD, put it to good use, man. And but thanks for having me, and I do appreciate the time.
Well, my pleasure, my pleasure. And this is a just a great way to share about books and literacy because I tell you, I've written and worked on a lot of things that a lot of people will never see because you publish and it goes behind some wall somewhere and
Mhm.
whatever. But glad to share about authors and creators and storytelling here wherever people are hearing this or seeing this. So
Absolutely.
glad to do that. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, go ahead, sorry.
No, I was gonna say absolutely, man. I think it's important to. I think especially now with social media being the way that it is, it's so useful for people to be able to find things,
Mhm.
find how to do the things that they love or that they're interested in, and platforming like yours is definitely a good place to do that.
Well, thank you, thank you. Trying to put the positive out into the social media. It's so much better to use social media for viewing art and books and getting to know about stories and things instead of getting in arguments. That's what families are for, you know? That's what
Right,
families are for.
right. Argue at Thanksgiving, that's
That's
what.
right. Yeah. Well, your call sign there is at the Ace Blade. So maybe that's a good lead in to talk about a little bit of the work that you do, and then we can sort of also tap into the origin. What is Ace Blade? And I should also probably mention Lumberjax.
Absolutely, yeah. So Ace Blade is a vigilante superhero that I created along with a friend of mine, Christoph Hollers, way back in 2006, 2007.
Oh, wow. Yeah, yeah.
And we were working together at a printing company, and we were always, just sharing and bonding over comic books, our love for, superheroes and all things like that. I always wanted to be a writer. I always wanted to write and create stories. He always had ideas for things, and we just decided, hey, let's give it a shot. So I actually ended up getting deployed the next year in 2008. And while I was deployed, I kept writing stories. I was just
Mhm.
writing, in my free time, anytime that I could get away or anytime that I, could get alone, I would put more stories down and I would send them to Chris and emails and I would send them to my wife and I would send them to, whoever would ever check them out,
Right, right.
along with the updates and things like that. And I was like, oh, what do you think about this? And then by the time I got back, I had something like 40 chapters of of stories. And I was like,
Mhm,
we should try to do something with this. So
mhm, mhm,
first we self-published the Ace Blade novel.
mhm.
And then that same friend, Christoph, he took me to my first comic book convention where like it blew my mind that normal people were making these stories that I loved. They weren't coming out of some factory somewhere from some robot machine that was just, made to create superheroes. And I was like, man, we could do this. So, we started reaching out to different artists and learning how the process of making comic books and at comic book conventions, meeting the greats like, Stan Lee and Neil Adams, rest in peace to them both. And
Mhm.
also, just amazing, local artists and things like that. And, here we are, 12, 13 years later, we got 7 issues of Ace Blade. Lumberjax is brought another one of my friends in who created Lumberjax, and then also another artist that I met. Y'all was like, oh, I got this idea for this character, King Supreme. So
Mhm.
we co-created that one, and then I finally bugged my wife enough to get her to let me create a character based off of her. So there's the Queen,
Love it,
and
love it.
and I got the kids all into stories and all kinds of stuff to try to interest them. and things like that as supporting characters, and maybe potentially characters that they might want to write and create for later on in life too. So just a just a love and passion for superheroes and storytelling, and
Mhm.
that's where Aceblade and all of this came from.
I love that you are also including family members, friends in the process and in the creation because, I mean, it's a book that people can read and be entertained by, or a series of books. But
Mhm.
then you also kind of have some memory stake in this. So these are like family artifacts and things that
Mm.
you'll be able to look back on and your family can look back on and go, hey, there we are doing superhero things. That's very
Yeah,
cool.
absolutely. Some family members are willingly, and some are unwillingly, but they're all they're all getting in there somehow. So yeah,
Nice.
hopefully they we are able to look back on them, down the road, and remember these times that we're making these things, and even though it's not a lot of time that we spend on it together, just something that we were able to do together, and I think that could be a good thing.
Yeah, yeah. I'm curious about what drew you to comics as a way of telling stories and um, that initial connection to storytelling overall, because you mentioned uh, Ace Blade is also out there as a novel, which I've seen.
Mhm.
It's out
Mhm.
there on Kindle, 2013, I think.
Yep.
The Las Vegas Vigilante.
Mhm.
So it's out there in prose as well as comics. So what inspired you to, I guess, A, kind of tell the prose story and connect with prose, but then also move into the realm of visuals?
Yeah, I really think it's three things. So, first off, I loved comic book characters as a kid, but it was always in cartoons.
Hmm.
I didn't have kind of like comic book stores near me, but every cartoon that I watched was superheroes. Of course, there was Tom and Jerry and all that stuff too, but Ninja Turtles was my thing. Batman Superman Adventures
Hmm.
was I'm going to watch it and I need it in my life. And then later in life I realized that my father is just an amazing storyteller. We would sit around and listen to him just tell stories about the crazy things he did as a kid. And then my mother is an artist, so art and story is comics. That's those
Hmm.
are the two main ingredients in comic books. So it was kind of in my DNA. And even though I do draw and I do consider myself an artist, it's not what I've spent the most time developing. So I spend the most time developing the storyteller in myself, and that's why I lean towards prose first. And you know, there's a saying, if you don't use it, you'll lose it. When it comes to your talents.
Hmm. Hmm.
And when I started thinking about doing comics, I was trying my best. I was trying my best to draw, and I was like, "Yo, this is not coming out. This is not coming out the way that I wanted to." So, I just decided to reach out to the talented folks who dedicated, their past 10, 12, got their 10,000 hours in, and
Hmm.
decided to hire them for that part. Every now and then I'll do a variant cover, or I'll, you know, um, do something, a sticker, or art for the characters. But I'm by trade a graphic designer now, so I use more computers and Photoshop and Illustrator to do my art.
Nice, nice. Now, there's also something in the midst of this called fourth wall.
Mm.
And so I'm curious about what fourth wall is all about and the kinds of stories that you're excuse me, I'll edit that, drawn to with that.
Yeah, Fourth Wall Productions is the name of our company. It's in media, what the fourth wall is, the invisible
Hmm.
barrier between the reader and the subject that they're viewing. And just that concept, especially in comic books, you got characters like Deadpool who famously break the fourth wall, and
Hmm.
talk directly to the reader from the stories, and that concept always intrigued me. And I think I wanted to create stories that kind of touched people, made them feel the things that I felt, growing up as a kid, watching the Ninja Turtles and and Batman, with Kevin Conroy. And
Yeah.
I think that's the best way to kind of break the fourth wall is to really impact the people that are enjoying, the comics. It is of course entertainment, but um, entertainment comes with all of the emotions, the
Mhm.
the happiness, the sadness, the anger, the intrigue. All of those things go into being entertained, and that's kind of what the fourth wall is, and how we kind of want to affect people with the stories that we tell.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Love that idea. There seems to be a really nice dose of science fiction
Mm.
and fantasy to the stories that you tell. So it seems like that's a genre that fits really well with the heroes that you create.
I'll tell you a secret. I'm trying to figure out how to transition from superheroes to space odyssey.
Uh-huh,
Um,
uh-huh.
I really want to do go the Star Trek route. I've loved Star Trek for as long as I can remember. I think I was introduced to Voyager earliest because it would come on after um Thursday Night SmackDown or something like that. It will come on
Yeah,
right
yeah.
after that. And I was like, oh, what is this show? Like I just happened to come on and I was watching. I was like, oh man, I kind of like this.
Uh-huh,
So
uh-huh.
then ran into, the next generation, and then found out about DS9, which I love, and even now Discovery, there's things, um
Hmm.
the old, like all of them have been, they're not all great, but I like them. I love them all.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, science fiction is really huge to me. And if I can figure out how to make it happen in this universe, I'm definitely gonna take Aceblade and the crew, or later characters. I might take them off planet to to discover new galaxies and boldly go where no fourth wall character has gone before.
I love it. I love it. I would be interested to see that story for sure. Yeah. I enjoy science fiction. It's a go-to for me. So
Yeah,
you're talking about lots of things that I love wrapped up right there too.
yeah, there we go. Yeah,
Yeah.
I love it.
Um, Curious, you mentioned a couple of the people that have worked on the books with you. And you also mentioned Stanley and Neil Adams and sort of being around these people at conventions and things. So I'm curious about folks that have been positive collaborators or just kind of voices in the journey along the way.
Oh yeah. I think that's one thing that I do love about social media is that you can find the people that, made the things that you love,
Mhm, mhm.
and nine times out of ten they'll be cool. They're cool people and they love talking about the things. And as long as you don't get on their nerves too much, they'll they'll give you a kind word. So yeah, absolutely. There's been Daryl Banks has been
Mhm,
amazing
mhm.
recently. He's the creator of Kyle Rayner, and he's the artist for some of the classic Green Lantern comics back in the day. And he actually did a variant cover for Ace Blade. He was kind enough last year to do a variant cover for Ace Blade, and he's come on our podcast and given us some encouraging words. But most of the one of the lessons I learned early in comics was to kind of build horizontally, with the people who are on your same level, not trying to reach up too far, for people who are way out of your league. But the other comic book creators have been great. So Wally McNair, who's an artist right down in Charlotte, he's just been a wealth of knowledge. Ro Lamb, who was a writer in Atlanta, Georgia, he's been, such a creative inspiration. Then you got people like Kyron Silva and Brian Lambert, who are way on, the West Coast,
Mhm.
but don't mind me texting them early in the morning to to get an idea or two off. So, there's been some greats also. Just recently, Mr. Uh, Brian Stillfreeze. I got
Oh
got a chance
yeah.
to meet him, and
Mhm.
I asked him if he would do a variant cover for Ace Blade, but he's a busy man. So I'm still waiting to get on that list. But I feel like that's one of my goals for the years to kind of collaborate with some of the legends in the game that I really enjoyed. And I did actually get one from Neil Adams before he passed away. So
Oh wow. Yeah.
that's great also. So Yeah, it's just a it's a great, it can be a great community at times. There's some troubles in the comic book community for sure,
I'm
but
sure.
my my the majority of my experience has been positive, with other creators and people who love comics. We just want to share the things that we love. So it's been mostly positive.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. And may it continue to be the case. May the voyage be a friendly one, as
There we go.
Star Trek was so often very friendly. So yeah,
Right.
yeah. Yeah. Um, so I always like to give space for sort of the web spaces, the places where people can go,
Mhm.
the next steps in your creative journey, and we may have one or two final shout outs before we conclude. But
Yeah.
curious about what's next and the places where people can go to follow along with the work you're doing.
Absolutely, yeah. So this year I think I'm gonna try to do more comic book conventions. Coming out of COVID and things, we were more active on social media, but I think I'm gonna actually try to get out to, some shows on the East Coast, North South Carolina, maybe even up to Baltimore Comic Con,
Hmm.
things
Hmm.
like that. But we started two podcasts during COVID, and we're keeping those going. So there's our weekly show, Foretells Podcast, where we interview other comic book creators on Saturday mornings, and then there's the Top Five Live, where we get on there and just argue about whatever's going on this week,
Nice,
and
nice.
then we try to weave in some pop culture and nerd stuff in there also. So that's where that's where I am, weekly. But of course, on social media, it's at the Aceblade on all the social media platforms. So definitely, if you love comic books and comic book debates, friendly debates, check
Yes.
me out.
Awesome. Awesome. I think the thing that I was going to ask, oh yes, next steps. You mentioned that you want to move in the world of Space Odyssey.
Mm.
Anything else that you'd like to mention that's currently in the creative kiln? I don't know if that's the right
Yeah,
way to
yeah.
say that. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I actually just signed one of my books to a production company called Bequest Studios. It's actually called The Ballad of the Black Rose, which is a Western, which is something that me and my wife both share a lot of interest in. But Bequest Studios is going to kind of be the place where I do all the stuff outside of superheroes. So I do have
Nice, nice.
some sci-fi stories that I'm working on for them. But they're yet to be announced. But but that's definitely a place to look out for. I'm excited about the opportunities we have with that for sure.
Cool, cool. Comics is such a wide world of storytelling, so it's cool to
Yeah.
hear that there's Western stuff that you're playing with, and science fiction, and all sorts of things. And I think the final thing, and we can touch anything that we might have missed, but the final thing I was going to say is you started out by calling me Doc, and so I thought it would be nice to celebrate and give some nice congratulations to a doctor that you have in your life as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. My mother, Dr. Quick, as I like to call her,
Uh-huh,
just recently got her PhD in early childhood development, and she's been, a real big. She's been, one of my top cheerleaders. My wife and my mom, and of course my children.
uh-huh.
And I always go back to the times where she would she would always practice. And I don't know how I don't know how the educators do it, dealing with rowdy kids. There was a time in probably the early 2000s where she was trained, at school to, defend herself from kids, and she would come home and she would practice the moves that she learned. She would practice the moves that she learned in school on me. And I
Uh-huh,
was like,
uh-huh.
Mom, I didn't do anything. What? But just to see her progress as an educator, and now her, being one of the top, recruits, kind of, she wants to retire, but they won't let her. They're like, Dr. Quick,
Oh
we
yeah.
need you to come back. We need you to come back for another year. So it's just amazing to see, what my mom has been able to do, in all the lives that she's affected, um, in the school system. So, like I said, much respect to all the educators around the world, because I know it's a tough job, but it's very, very much needed.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And when you get a good one, it's like, oh, you want to retire? Keep coming back, please, please. Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. Well, shout out to a very creative superhero family.
Mm.
And thank you so much for the time. Did we miss anything that you want to make sure to share before we close out?
I don't think so. I think we got it all on there, man. I think the only thing I can really think of is just to tell people to go for it.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
always want to tell people if there's something that you have an idea for, try it. I had a I'll tell a story about how when Twitch first started, and my children they would sit there and they would watch people play video games, and I didn't understand it. I saw
Hmm.
it and I was like, man, that's kind of interesting, but I don't, I'm resistant to it because I would rather play video games than watch people. But they spent so much time on it, and then Twitch became this huge thing,
Hmm.
But then, so I kind of felt like I missed the boat on it. I was like, I could have done that, but I was doubting myself. But when TikTok came along, and I saw my kids again, being consumed by this, new platform with the dances and things, I was
Hmm.
like, you know what? I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna get on there and I'm gonna make some videos. And it was one of the best decisions I've made in the past couple of years. There's a great community of comic book lovers on TikTok, and I've been able to sell my comic books on there and reach a lot of people that I never would have been able to reach, especially during COVID when we couldn't go out.
Hmm.
So just try it. Whatever the idea is that you have, whatever it is that you're thinking about doing, just do it. Like what did Yoda say? There is no try, there's just do.
That's
You
right.
either do or do not.
That's
So,
right.
do it, and you never know what happened. So
Exactly. Love it. Love it. Well, Danny, thank you so much, and may the creating continue. And glad to talk again anytime.
thank you so much for having me, man.
My pleasure.